A public walkabout by King Charles III, intended to reflect continuity, calm, and connection between the monarchy and the public, took an unexpected turn when a heckler attempted to confront the king with questions about police interest in his brother, Prince Andrew. The moment, brief but striking, quickly reverberated beyond the crowd in which it occurred, touching once again on unresolved tensions surrounding the royal family, public accountability, and the modern monarchy's relationship with scrutiny. The incident unfolded during a ceremonial appearance marked by tradition and pageantry. King Charles, accompanied by aides and security personnel, was greeting well-wishers who had gathered to see the monarch in person. Such walkabouts are designed to present accessibility and warmth, allowing members of the public to briefly interact with the sovereign, exchange words, and offer expressions of support or curiosity. Yet they also expose the monarchy to unscripted moments, where deeply personal or controversial issues can surface unexpectedly. As the king moved along the line, a voice from the crowd rose above the general murmur. The individual, later described by witnesses as a lone protester rather than part of an organized demonstration, called out a pointed question referencing police investigations involving Prince Andrew. The words cut sharply through the ceremonial atmosphere, momentarily freezing the scene. Security personnel acted swiftly, positioning themselves between the heckler and the monarch. The king did not respond directly to the question, continuing his movement after a brief pause. The heckler was escorted away from the immediate vicinity, and the event resumed with visible efforts to restore calm and normality. While the interruption lasted only seconds, its symbolic weight was far greater. It served as a reminder that despite the monarchy's efforts to project stability and dignity, unresolved controversies continue to follow the institution, especially those linked to Prince Andrew, whose reputation has been severely damaged in recent years. A moment that resonated beyond the crowd. In isolation, heckling at public appearances is not new. Politicians, celebrities, and even members of royal families have long faced public questioning, criticism, and protest. What made this moment stand out was not merely the act of heckling, but the subject matter and the target. King Charles, as head of state, embodies continuity and constitutional neutrality. He does not comment on criminal matters, police investigations, or personal controversies involving family members. The heckler's attempt to draw him into such a discussion was therefore almost certain to fail. Yet the question itself highlighted the tension between public curiosity and the monarchy's long-standing tradition of silence on sensitive matters. Observers noted the king's composed demeanor. He neither reacted visibly nor acknowledged the question. For supporters of the monarchy, this restraint demonstrated professionalism and respect for constitutional boundaries. For critics, it underscored what they see as a pattern of avoidance and opacity when serious allegations touch the royal family. Within minutes, video clips and eyewitness accounts of the incident circulated widely, ensuring that what might once have been a fleeting disruption became a topic of broader public debate. Prince Andrew and the shadow of controversy. Any reference to Prince Andrew inevitably evokes a complex and controversial history. Once a prominent working royal, the Duke of York enjoyed a high-profile role within the monarchy for decades. His military service, charitable involvement, and close association with Queen Elizabeth II once contributed to a largely positive public image. That image deteriorated dramatically following allegations linked to his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew has consistently denied wrongdoing, but the controversies surrounding his connections and subsequent legal challenges led to significant consequences. In response to sustained public pressure and reputational damage, Prince Andrew stepped back from public duties. He lost military titles and royal patronages, and his role within the monarchy was effectively reduced to that of a private individual, albeit one still connected by blood and title to the royal family. The mention of police investigations, whether active or historical, continues to revive public anger and frustration. For many, the unresolved nature of the controversy represents a broader concern about accountability for powerful individuals. For others, it raises questions about fairness, due process, and the boundaries between personal misconduct and institutional responsibility. The heckler's question to King Charles tapped directly into these unresolved tensions. The king's constitutional position. As monarch, King Charles occupies a role defined by constitutional restraint. He reigns but does not rule, acting on the advice of elected governments and maintaining strict political neutrality. This neutrality extends to legal matters, particularly those involving law enforcement or the judiciary. Any comment by the king on police investigations, especially involving a family member, would risk breaching constitutional conventions and potentially influencing public perception of the justice system. It would also raise serious questions about interference or favoritism. Royal historians and constitutional experts have long emphasized that silence in such cases is not merely a personal choice, but a structural necessity. The monarchy's legitimacy depends in part on its separation from political and legal disputes. Nevertheless, critics argue that silence can also be interpreted as indifference or evasion, particularly when allegations involve serious harm. This tension lies at the heart of modern debates about the monarchy's role in a democratic society. Public walkabouts in a changed era. Public walkabouts have long been a hallmark of royal engagement. Popularized in the latter half of the 20th century, they were intended to break down barriers between the monarchy and the public, replacing distant pageantry with moments of personal connection. In earlier eras, crowds were more deferential, and critical voices were less likely to be heard in such settings. Today, however, the media landscape and public attitudes have changed dramatically. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, and a culture of direct confrontation have transformed public events into potential flashpoints. Members of the royal family are now acutely aware that any appearance carries risk. Supportive cheers can quickly be overshadowed by a single hostile question or protest sign. Security planning has become more complex, balancing openness with protection. The incident involving King Charles illustrates this new reality. While most attendees were reportedly respectful and enthusiastic, one voice was enough to shift the narrative and dominate headlines. Security and crowd management. Security teams are trained to respond rapidly to disruptions, especially those that might escalate into threats. In this case, the response was measured and efficient. The heckler was removed without visible force, and the king was not rushed away from the event. This approach reflects a careful balance. Overreacting can draw more attention to the disruption and create an impression of fragility or fear. Underreacting, on the other hand, could expose the monarch to risk or allow the incident to spiral. Officials later emphasized that such interruptions are anticipated and planned for. The presence of security personnel close to the monarch during walkabouts is not accidental but a deliberate strategy to allow public engagement while minimizing danger. Media coverage and public reaction. Reaction to the incident was swift and polarized. Supporters of the king praised his composure and argued that he acted appropriately by ignoring the provocation. They emphasized that the monarch should not be expected to answer for the actions or controversies of relatives, particularly when those relatives no longer hold official roles. Others saw the moment differently. For critics, the heckler's question represented a legitimate expression of public concern. They argued that the monarchy, as an institution benefiting from public funding and privilege, cannot entirely separate itself from the actions of its members. Commentators debated whether such questions should be tolerated or discouraged. Some suggested that allowing critical voices at public events demonstrates confidence and openness. Others warned that confrontational tactics risk turning ceremonial occasions into arenas of hostility. The debate extended beyond the specific incident to broader questions about free expression, respect, and the purpose of royal engagements. The burden of family ties. For King Charles, the situation highlights the personal complexity of his role. As a brother, he shares a private family bond with Prince Andrew. As monarch, he must prioritize the integrity and reputation of the crown above all else. Navigating this dual identity is not easy. Decisions regarding Prince Andrew's status, residence, and public presence have attracted intense scrutiny. Each choice is interpreted not only as a family matter but as a statement about values, accountability, and leadership. The heckler's question forced this tension into the open, even if only briefly. It reminded observers that personal relationships within the royal family cannot be entirely separated from public expectations. Historical parallels. Royal history offers numerous examples of public confrontations, protests, and moments of dissent. Monarchs have faced angry crowds, hostile pamphlets, and even open rebellion. In comparison, a shouted question at a walkabout may seem minor. Yet history also shows that seemingly small moments can carry symbolic weight. Public perception of the monarchy has often shifted in response to how it handles criticism and controversy. In the modern era, the monarchy's survival depends less on coercive power and more on consent. Public trust, once lost, is difficult to regain. As such, every interaction, however brief, contributes to the broader narrative. Accountability and the institution. At the core of the Heckler's challenge lies a fundamental question: to what extent should the monarchy be held accountable for the actions of its members? The official position has been clear that Prince Andrew is no longer a working royal and does not represent the institution. This distinction is intended to shield the monarchy from direct association with his controversies. However, critics argue that as long as he retains titles, privileges, or royal connections, complete separation is impossible. They contend that symbolic measures are insufficient without deeper structural changes. Supporters counter that stripping titles or severing all ties would set a dangerous precedent, politicizing the monarchy and undermining its apolitical nature. The debate remains unresolved, and the Heckler's question brought it momentarily to the forefront. The silence of the crown. Silence has long been a tool of royal communication. By saying nothing, the monarchy often seeks to rise above controversy, allowing issues to fade rather than escalate. In some cases, this strategy has proven effective. In others, silence has been interpreted as aloofness or complicity. The effectiveness of silence depends heavily on public mood and context. In this instance, King Charles's silence was expected and arguably unavoidable. Yet it did little to satisfy those demanding answers. Instead, it reinforced the perception that certain questions remain beyond reach. A snapshot of a larger debate. Ultimately, the incident was not about a single heckler or a single question. It was a snapshot of a larger, ongoing debate about the monarchy's place in contemporary society. Questions of privilege, accountability, transparency, and relevance continue to shape public discourse. The royal family, once insulated by tradition and deference, now operates in an environment of constant scrutiny. Every public appearance, statement, or silence contributes to an evolving relationship between the crown and the public it serves. Moving forward. In the days following the incident, royal engagements continued as planned. There was no indication that public walkabouts would be curtailed or significantly altered. This continuity sends a message of resilience and confidence. At the same time, the monarchy remains aware that unresolved controversies do not simply disappear. They resurface in moments like this, often unexpectedly. For King Charles, the challenge lies in balancing openness with restraint, tradition with adaptation, and personal loyalty with institutional responsibility. Conclusion. The Heckler's attempt to question King Charles about police investigating his brother Andrew lasted only moments, but its implications lingered far longer. It highlighted the enduring shadow cast by controversy, the constraints of constitutional monarchy, and the evolving expectations of a modern public. While the king's silence was consistent with his role, it did not quiet the broader conversation. Instead, it reminded observers that beneath the ceremonial calm of royal appearances lie complex and unresolved issues that continue to test the monarchy's relationship with society. In an age of instant communication and heightened accountability, even a single shouted question can resonate widely. For the monarchy, navigating these moments with dignity and foresight will remain an ongoing challenge, one that defines not only public perception but the future of the institution itself.